You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. You know, there's so much going on in retail automotive today, and I've got just the guy to help us figure this all out, Mr. Andy Wright, who's managing partner of Vinart Dealerships, and to share his perspective on some of the things that we've seen here in the last few weeks. It has been absolutely crazy, Andy. Thank you so much for joining us.
Always good to be with you, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So before we jump into some of these things, can you give us an update, if there is an update, on the Hyundai Amazon situation? How's that moving?
Yeah, sure.
How's that going along?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a story in one of the automotive publications a week ago or so that kind of touched on where we're at right now. There were a series of conference calls that were held about 2 weeks ago by Hyundai executive management, just sort of giving the dealer body an update on where we are in the pilot program, and where we are sort of in the negotiations with Hyundai, and by the negotiations with Amazon, excuse me. And by the negotiations with Amazon, I mean where the Hyundai dealer subcommittee is in relation to the negotiation process that has been ongoing with the executive team at Amazon, and it specifically relates to what they call the Business Services Agreement Addendum. Every reseller on Amazon ultimately signs their sort of stock standard business services agreement. Obviously, it's a little different selling cars than it is selling socks or books and things like that. So we've had to engage them in a process whereby we need an addendum to this standard BSA because the automotive industry, retail automotive industry, is so unique. And we're actively working through that. They did engage Hyundai in a small expansion of the pilot program. So I think there were 18 dealers, if my math recollection is correct. And I think they wanted to add another 10 to 15 dealers to that, just to get a little bit better data set to evaluate, which I think is understandable. It's reasonable, but the platform is still very limited, Jim. And I think that that's well documented. I'm not speaking out of school here. We still don't have the ability to take a trade in. We can't lease a car. We can't do a co-buyer. There's just a myriad of things that need to get improved, that need to get built out more robustly.
Sure.
Amazon is working on it. But I'd say that in a best case scenario, we'd be looking at a large scale rollout sometime toward the tail end of the third quarter. And that's assuming everything goes well. So they're learning a lot from the pilot. The dealers and Hyundai are learning a lot from the pilot. But we have a ways to go here. And, that it remains to be seen just exactly how quickly we're able to get this accomplished. So I wish I had more definitive timelines and answers for you, but that's the best I can give you at this point.
Well, that's a good update. I know a lot of dealerships, both Hyundai and otherwise, all dealers, the whole industry right now is looking at that relationship and what's going to come from that. So I appreciate you giving us the update. Sounds like it's moving along, but you're not quite there yet. As you said, you're working out some of the kinks in the system. So
they've been great to work with, by the way. I want to just add that Amazon has been extremely receptive. Like any business negotiation, there's always going to be sticking points, and we're working through those, and we'll see what comes out at the end when this sausage gets finally made, or the cake gets baked, however you want to characterize it.
Well, I think both sides at the end of the day want something to work in this regard because of the huge amount of customers they have, and I'm sure Hyundai wants it because they'd love to play a role in retail automotive and be able to offer their members, great products at great prices and such, and that doesn't stop at just soaps and books. It also goes on to automobiles as well. So it kind of helps to complete their circle, right, of offering.
We'll see how it shakes out. That's right. You got that right.
For sure. So let's move on here to CDK. I mean, what went through your mind when you first heard this news? I mean, here you are over a number of dealerships, and you can only imagine, my gosh, these dealers that are CDK dealers, which I should mention on the outset here, you are not a CDK dealer, so you are not as impacted as these unfortunate dealers out there that were dealing with this, and of course CDK was dealing with this. But talk to us about that. What was your initial reaction?
Yeah, I mean, when the news initially broke, obviously I was very concerned because of the tentacles that CDK has throughout the entire industry, both at the dealer level, with the OEMs, with the third-party vendors, and other technology companies. I mean, their reach is vast. It's broad.
Yeah.
So it definitely was going to impact the entire industry, including people like myself who are not quote unquote CDK DMS users. But I just knew right away it was going to impact the industry. That was number one. Number two, my heart went out to my friends in particular, my colleagues in the industry who I know so well, that were directly impacted by this because they were basically handcuffed. They were unable to do business there for a couple of days until they could kind of shake out exactly what was happening and how they were going to be able to respond in the interim until such time as systems come back online. So that was number two. Then number three, frankly, I sprung into action in my capacity as Hyundai's National Dealer Council chairman, and I reached out to the executive team, Randy Parker in particular, and just said, "Hey, Randy, listen, this is going to have an impact on how our month closes, on so many of the programs that are out there that Hyundai dealers rely on to drive a lot of their profitability on a month after month or quarter after quarter basis." So I thought it was prudent to try to get out in front of that and see what we could do in order to prepare effectively. And I was met with extremely receptive, an extremely receptive response from Randy and the entire executive team. And it just so happened that last week we were able to convene with Jose Munoz and Randy and the executive team there, and they came out with an assistance package that was really great. It helped out all the CDK impacted Hyundai dealers. They didn't have to do that, but they did it anyway, and I thought it was emblematic of the growth in our partnership and our relationship between the National Dealer Council and Hyundai Executive Management. Lord knows we have our disagreements, we have our differences, and we work through those. But we also tend to rally and tend to circle the wagons when we experience hardships, whether it was the COVID-19 pandemic when they were so responsive back then, or when it was the financial crisis and they came out with Hyundai Assurance to not only assist consumers but dealers. And now here we are with the CDK crisis, and they sprung into action. So hats off to Jose Munoz, to Randy, the entire team. They did a great job responding. We'll see how the dust settles out here in July as we're sort of cleaning up from June. But unfortunately, my CDK friends, they've got a little bit of a job ahead of them here to get caught up and get back to normal business. And but I do think that that's imminent and certainly on the horizon. So that's encouraging.
Sure. As a managing partner of our dealerships, does an alarm go off with you about all of your other vendors, your technology, all of the data, all the people that have access to your data, and then also you as head of the dealerships to say, what if our group was hacked and we were in the same position that CDK is in right now, or I should say, when they were. Is that a concern? Do you do things differently? Do you vet the vendors moving forward differently? There's got to be a lot of different takeaways from this, right?
Sure. I think, my biggest takeaway is, and I've had the privilege of serving on a couple different panels here in the previous days that have been discussing this topic. And really, my whole purview on this has been, where do we go from here, Jim?
Yeah.
Because I think that, our industry has definitely been behind at times in how we've approached technology, particularly with respect to data security and security protocols in the software systems that are so prominent in our industry. I've used the word monolithic architecture more in the last 2 weeks than I think I've ever uttered in my entire life. But
which is a term that's probably shot up. It's got like a hockey stick numbers to people going, what the hell does that mean, right?
What the hell does that mean, right? Yeah, but if you're a CDK dealer, you're rapidly coming to understand what that means. But it's but I think, look, I don't think we gain anything right now as an industry by engaging in a finger pointing exercise. I think we have to be solutions oriented and outcomes based. And I think we need to come together. We need to rally, and we need to rally and form a consensus around how we're going to conduct business going forward. Dealers, OEMs, third party vendors and technology companies. What is that interaction? What is that relationship going to look like?
Right.
And then what are the standards? The standards, that's the key word now.
Yep.
What are the standards that we can all come together and agree to so that moving forward, we have basically an ecosystem or an architecture, however you want to characterize it, that is very much akin to that which exists in the financial services industry.
Right. We'll be, dissecting this over the next number of years to figure out
Sure will.
what happened. Now, in the next number of years, it could very easily happen again, especially when it's a situation where, CDK is in a position where they've got to pay, this ransom to get dealers back on and what have you. And it sounds like that's what happened. But, we've had the discussions before on CBT News. Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Does it open the door or invite this situation to happen to other providers or what have you? So, but then again, as many have said, hey, CDK has a business to run and they've got clients and partners to worry about. So who knows what anybody would do in that situation, right? Until you're in it.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. My heart goes out, like I said, to the dealers that are impacted, but really the team members at those dealerships that are impacted, whose livelihoods are impacted. Fortunately, every dealer I've talked to that's been directly impacted by this, because they're a CDK DMS customer, has told me, they're going to do the right thing. They're going to step up. They're going to take care of their people, make sure that they're not adversely impacted by this, because it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And, I think that that's heartening. I think, that just speaks to the quality of people that are out here in this industry. And that's what makes me proud to be a part of it. And, we'll get through this situation. Adversity always breeds strength. And hopefully that strength, that newfound strength, leads to circumstances that will prevent this from happening in the future.
Sure.
And I'm confident that will. So
sure.
I appreciate you bringing such big attention to this issue through your platform.
Yeah.
Again, it speaks to the power of what you do.
Yeah.
And why we need to continue talking about this. So I hope it stays at the forefront of everybody's mind.
Yeah, as soon as I heard it, I said that we got to be all over this. Well, I want to get everybody's viewpoint on it. I want to get everybody's take on what happened and what their feelings are about this issue moving forward, whether it be a vendor, a dealer, an association president, OEM executive, whatever it is. Everybody has got a hand in this and a perspective on it. So that's why we did all of the coverage that we did and that we're doing. We're not going to leave it alone. We want to talk about the recovery and what's happening there and really helping in any way that we can to get the word out. And as I said, to get all of the different perspectives out on this particular issue. So switching gears with you a little bit here, we are now entering into the second half of 2024. Unfortunately, this has happened with so many dealers, but looking beyond that, how is your business doing the first half of 2024? And then the follow-up to that is going to be, how do you feel about the second half? There's a lot going on out there, obviously, in the economy with a crazy election that we see that regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, and I'm not picking a side here, it's nuts.
No, I get it. So yeah, absolutely. No, and the election's going to definitely have an impact, particularly in the tail end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter. We know that it happens every time we have a presidential election. So I think we all expect that. But first half of the year was a bit of a mixed bag for the brands that I represent. Okay. We had a handful that were up, and we had a handful that were down in terms of new car sales. We had a used car market that for us was quite strong. Granted, we didn't enjoy the used car success and increases that some of my fellow dealer brethren did the last few years by choice. We just weren't as aggressive with our acquisitions and things like that. But our new car volume overall is steady. Used cars remains steady as well. And I think demand is going to continue to be strong for used cars. We're seeing a little bit of demand evaporation, for lack of a better word, if you will, here in certain corners of the new car market. But, I think that just speaks to the opportunity that the OEMs have to sort of juice the situation with some additional incentives, because we're still, again, in certain corners, in need of incentives to sell these cars to make up for the inflation that we've experienced in vehicle pricing the last few years, Jim. And I know we've talked about the affordability challenges on numerous occasions on your show when you've had me on. We knew this day was coming. Right. So now it's time to react. Some have done a better job of reacting than others. And but I think we're going to see the second half of the year here with supplies starting to reach pre-COVID levels, and in some instances above pre-COVID levels. The manufacturers are going to have to respond here, because carrying costs are, I know, crippling a lot of dealers. And I just think the OEMs are going to have to respond here. Otherwise, dealers are going to be in a situation where they're not going to be able to accept any more inventory, and that's not good for anybody, right?
No.
And then lastly, parts and service continues to be strong. And I think, again, that's just a reflection of the fact that Some people are priced out of the market for a new or used car, so they have to put the money into repairing or maintaining their current vehicle. And so, how sustainable is that really? That remains to be seen. But we'll keep riding the wave as long as we can. If this is as bad as it's going to get, I'll take it. Because it's not that bad. But there's definitely pockets of weakness that are concerning from a macroeconomic standpoint. And I think the industry needs to be prepared to pivot and react and take action. And again, some are doing it. Some need to get their act together.
That's right. That's right. And you're right, managing partner of Vinart Dealerships. Thank you so much for joining us. This is why we love having you on, man. You get such a great perspective on all these different issues and challenges that face today's automobile dealer. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Love to do a follow-up with you to see how things are moving along.
Sounds good, Jim. Thanks for having me again.
Great. Thanks.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.